Now we turn. There we go. I think that's going to work right there. All right. We are live. I think my head is always large as usual. This is Beau from BEAU'D Not Broken. This is the Daily Bend. And we're fortunate enough today to be again in Tooele. Our topic is unfortunately suicide, but fortunately it's something that I think we need to talk about and spend a lot more time talking about. I think everyone's been affected by it. Our shows are downloaded onto BEAU'DNotBroken.com and the YouTube channel, BEAU'D Not Broken as well. This show is about adversities. This show is about faith and courage and endurance. We're all BEAU'D Not Broken. At least that's my taint on life, I guess. And we have people on the show, normal people. All of us are normal or abnormal in some ways. And it's people helping people. It's people talking about some of the adversities that they've gone through and in their own voice, in their own way. And maybe it's something that you might pick up along the way, something that might help you, or you might be able to help someone else. Our guests, fortunately enough, have been networking. We've had people, on that. There's like 10 people that became a cancer group or became a part of a cancer group yesterday, and the different shows that we have. Today, we'll get started, and we have Becca, we have John, and I think we're going to get right into, I'm going to ask Becca to maybe just tell us a little bit about herself for the sake of time. She's got we're under a little bit of a time constraint, but then we'll get right into the Life Worth Living Foundation and things like that. So would you tell us a little bit about yourself and why or how you got involved in all this stuff?
Okay, so I'm Becca, obviously.
Right.
And in February of 2014, I lost my brother to suicide. He was a drug addict and just felt like his life was at its, bottom and took his own life.
How old was he when he?
28.
28.
Yeah.
So and when we talk about suicide and we talk about people's feelings, we're not just talking about teenagers, we're talking about adults and even people as old as I am that are in their 50s or 60s. But right now we're talking about your brother, and any signs? Tell us a little bit about kind of what led up to that and then your involvement in everything.
Well, I'm a big drug freak. I don't like them, but he started doing drugs in junior high. He started with marijuana, led to the next thing, and then in his last year, while he was alive, a few months before he died, we had him in some detox centers and we had him in a rehab. And he made new friends there with different drugs, started heroin, and then it got pretty bad. Left his wife and his 3 kids, and me and my dad, we tried to keep him, and our family really, we tried to keep him afloat, but he got suicidal in that last month before he actually did it, and we would try to convince him, we would talk to him for a while and convince him out of it for that day. Mm-hmm. And then one day he just snapped.
So there were signs with him. There are signs with other people.
Yeah.
Tell us some experiences you've had with other people that may not have some of the signs, or signs that we don't pick up on. That would be pretty important as well.
About other people I know?
Yes, or other people that you've dealt with the foundation, or you've heard about, or something like that. Can't think of anything?
No, my mind's drawn and blank. Maybe John can.
John, tell us a little bit about you and your involvement with Life Worth Living and all that kind of stuff as well.
Well, I was going to say, first to answer your question, so I think we've had people from all different walks of life that have approached the foundation. We've had sexual abuse,
right?
Mental abuse. We've had
if I check my watch and if I check things, just no worries.
We've had sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse.
And speak up just a little bit. Sorry.
We've had bullying. We've had gambling addictions, drug addictions, alcoholism. I mean, there's so many different triggers.
Do you see it age specific? Do you see certain things in certain ages, age categories that are signs, things like that, or contributors to?
Well, I will tell you. So last year, I had a meeting with someone that runs another organization, and come to find out, we had a suicide within the state of Utah last year of a kindergartner. So at kindergarten age,
We're talking.
What takes you there? What brings that on and even lets you feel that way? Now that's at one extreme, and then I'll tell you, we did a fundraiser. We were organizing for a fundraiser, and we were set up at the doors of Albertsons in Tooele. And as we set up the table, it wasn't every 5 minutes. Becca and my daughter Sarah were manning the table at the very first. We barely got the table set up.
Right.
And we had a little old lady, probably in her 80s, come up to the table. Do you remember her? Mm-hmm. And she walked up, gave both the girls hugs, thanked them for what they were doing, and she said, you probably wouldn't know this, but I attempted suicide this last summer. In her 80s. So, I mean, you've got one extreme to the other. So there is nothing in between those two that is out of bounds. I mean, it seems like it's from kindergarten to your seniors. Unfortunately, for kids 10 to 17, number one cause of death. Number one cause of death.
Okay.
10 to 17.
And do we here in Utah? I mean, Utah. We talked a little bit about it with our fine folks, Toby and Missy and all that. Last week, same day last week, we had them on. We talked about Utah being very high in suicide rate. Fifth in the nation.
Fifth in the nation.
And that county-wise, Tooele's high, but so is Davis and Weber County, I think.
In a lot of the smaller Garfield, Iron.
Oh, okay.
Kane County down south.
Okay.
So you get a lot of the rural communities. Unfortunately, in Tooele, we take a little bit of a bad rap because about 1/4 of our suicides are people from Salt Lake County, Utah County, coming out here to take their life.
We are in Tooele, Utah, which is west of Salt Lake City, west of Salt Lake County, very close to the Salt Lake in Utah in the United States. For those that might be watching from or will watch it taped from somewhere else, we're talking about suicide. We're talking with Becca and John about. Becca talked about her brother, and John talking about some of the statistics and things like that. Becca, was there any history of suicide in your family, or do you contribute most of what happened with your brother, chemical changes, brain, and things like that?
Yeah.
Was he, a history of drug abuse for a long time? Was this the first time that was this the first episodes or series of episodes that he tried to kill himself, or were there times prior to that he did that?
No times prior to it. It wasn't until he really got into the harder drug that it started really messing with him. Like, he got addicted to pain pills for a while, and then he went to heroin, and he always told me, Becca, if I ever turned to heroin, because we were trying to help him with his drug problem for a long time. It was about 8 years that he was on using drugs, and we slowly watched him change from one person to someone else, and it's definitely took its toll on like the chemical balance, and changed him. They did something to him.
So when this happened, what kind of, we talk about, on this show we talk about faith, and not necessarily religious faith, but faith and courage and endurance. Something in you, and John, obviously, something in you said, wait a minute, this is, what did you think? What was it? This is ridiculous. This is sad. This is horrific. This is, not just my brother. What kind of sparked the whole, the whole organizational push to do something about what was going on here? And I know you affect a lot of other people too, and we'll talk about that. But what was it that spurred your movement to build this organization?
When my brother passed away, I was talking with John on the phone because we've been friends for a really long time, and I was just kind of moping and whatever. And
moping is good. You can mope. A lot of things come out of moping.
He said we should do something about this because in that same weekend we had another Tooele boy from high school that was on the wrestling team commit suicide a couple of days, I think,
2 days
before
prior.
my brother. And then there was a couple more teens that did it, and then another kid that his parents are with our foundation was a couple of weeks after. And we just said, like, I was questioning, well, why couldn't I say them? Why couldn't I have kept him, I kept him from it before, why couldn't I do it again? And we decided that Tooele needed something for these kids and adults, children, anybody to have somewhere to go, somewhere to visit, someone to talk to, because we didn't have any of those kinds of resources here.
So you two started this nexus of we're going to do something, and how'd you go about doing that? What the interesting part is,
He's the brains.
how do you? Oh, he's the brains. There's beauty in the brains, right? Is that what happens? How did things? What was the nexus for it? Obviously, there was a need to change, but how did that happen? Because I mean, a lot of people go, "Hey, I'm going to help. I want to help somebody, and I want to help, and this is a horrible thing that's happening." What was it that got you moving?
I would say, we had the 3 suicides pretty rapidly in a short period of time. And I think in talking about what we could have done differently, what we could do to have saved Jed, and, as a friend of her brother as well. And so, you can't live in the past and you can't fix things that are already past.
Right.
But I believe with all my heart that Jed and the others from that period of time, I think they all are hoping that we can save that pain from the next family. And so when we talked about it, we discussed it for a while, and we immediately started putting this into process. We knew it was important to get our 501c3 status. We needed to file the documents at the state level so that we could actually build an organization that had longevity, could go forever and ever. And I think we thought, if we don't do it, who will? I mean, who will if
In
we
your
don't?
plan, I guess we're talking with Becca and John about my mind's I've got you, the Life Worth Living Foundation, and what was it that what did you hope to do? What did you hope when you were putting this organization together? Were you hoping to prevent? I'm going to prevent all suicides, I guess
think
what
at
were
first
you?
we honestly thought, well, for me, my thought process was, if we had a support group where people could go once a month and let out their feelings, and everybody's kind of, a place where there's no judgment.
Right. Okay.
And it's like a non-denominational place where people could go visit. For me, that was like, if we even just had a support group, and I just thought, oh, support group's going to be, that's good.
Right. Right.
Just leave it at that.
And it was a great plan because out of all the counties in Utah, we were the only county that didn't have a suicide support group. A lot of them are run in hospitals, they'll house them in hospitals, they'll house them in community centers, and throughout the Wasatch Front, the rest of the state, they had those. In Tooele, we didn't. And so, rather than complain about it, we just said, let's do it. So we started one in a local church to house it because it was our only option. We have now grown, doubled in size, and we're now housed in the Tooele Applied Technology College.
Oh, wow.
So in the TATC, we have a big classroom, and we can accommodate whatever crowd comes. And so that kind of led us into how we would start it. We do have a threefold mission: raise awareness, educate, and prevent suicides. If we focused solely on the support group, you're catching people too late.
Right.
So we do community activities, not activities, but we'll bring in speakers. For instance, a few weeks ago we brought in Dustin Reichert, who is a former Oakland Raider, BYU football player, that talked about addiction and his journey that ultimately took his NFL career. And so we need to hit those people like her brother that had addiction problems. We need to hit them before they've attempted suicide or life has got to that bottomless pit where they just can't get out or see out. So we try to raise awareness of different things. Next month we're doing a movie screening at the TATC on bowling. It's a movie that never made its way to Utah. It was released nationally, and it was to be played in Layton. They had another popular movie, so they used 2 screens for that movie and dropped the one on bowling. But it's a very impactful movie on bowling, and so we're going to show that to the community and have a discussion afterwards. And so we try to do some of those things to educate. We're paying for a training next week, Wednesday the 27th. We're paying for Safe Talk training. It's a training that the school district didn't have, some of the city organizations didn't have. We have had it. We went into Salt Lake and had it, and we decided, what, let's bring this to our community.
That's great.
We'll flip the coin for that. Let's make it happen so that all these people that are in leadership positions in our county can have that training as well.
Oh, good. So everything from law enforcement to medical to everybody, parents, and
we may have to bring it out again because we're full.
Oh, wow.
So
wow.
They only allow so many people in for training, and so we'll probably bring them back for another date.
Wow.
Later on.
We're talking to Becca and John here on the Daily Bend about suicide and about their organization that is helping people and kind of the nexus of what they were doing. I've had on this show, we've had a young man who's about 22, 23 years old who was horribly affected by bullying, and talked about it. He was actually our first show. We've also had high-profile figures on this show that have talked about suicide, have gotten to a point in their life where they were one click away or they were one act away from taking their own life, and which is sad. So I mean, this is something. I guess my point is, it affects everyone. And what have you found? Why don't we talk about it? Why don't we talk about it more? Why don't we broadcast it more? Is that a frustration for you? And I guess 2 questions. Why don't we talk about it more? And, is that a frustration?
I think for me, before my brother did it, it was a word you didn't want to talk about because to me it was almost a scary word. Like, you don't want to bring it up because you don't want to give someone the idea as how I felt before it was my own brother who did it. And then after he did it, I realized it was a word that needed to not be so scary. It needs to be a word that can be talked about, and it doesn't mean it's giving someone that idea.
Is it normal to, I think in my own mind, I think at certain times of your life, certain very critical events or life events in your life, I think in some ways, maybe not with chemical change with drugs, I could see it there, but I can also see a normal person who considers themselves normal to think about it when the chips are down, the adversity's high, they've lost a loved one, or they've got a disease, or they have whatever. You want to talk about that for just not to say it's okay to kill yourself or be involved in suicide, but I find it very interesting that we don't talk about it, and I guess we need to talk about it a lot more. But what's your thought about someone being normal? And
I think it's normal for people to experience depression throughout different periods of their life. Everybody has their good times and their bad times. And it goes back to something you talked about. It can be spiritual and stuff. I think there is something in all people that you hear about. We're here to bear each other's burdens. We're here to help people along the way. Kind of the exact opposite of bullying. Bullying is dragging people down, not because you're strong. You're weak. You're just stronger than the person you bully. But the way that you get through life is by seeing people's needs and trying to help out, fill their needs. You bear each other's burdens. You try to lighten the load for people. If everybody were to, and it doesn't have to be spiritual, but if everybody was willing to look at people and say, let me give you a hand, you look like you're in need of this or that. If everybody would bear each other's burdens, wouldn't life be better?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, definitely.
There's way
so.
too much tearing people down, and,
Right.
and there's good in everybody. There's great people everywhere. Doesn't mean they're not going to experience the bad times,
Right.
and hit points in their life where they feel like maybe you can't go on. But you know what? Those are the people you need to look for, and not be afraid to ask them. I mean, are you thinking about suicide? Are you considering that? Do you have a plan? Be willing to ask people that, because you never know. You can prejudge people and look at them, but you don't know what's going on in here.
We were talking about how sometimes people are very quiet, when they're in crisis, I guess you would call it. And those are the people that are most dangerous, or the ones that may potentially be, they have a plan, they're quiet because it's time to act on that plan sometimes. Obviously you have a 24-hour hotline, you have all kinds of other things. I'm sure, do you get calls from outside Tooele?
We've actually had calls from as far away as Australia. Now, we've never advertised to be anything other than Tooele County.
Right.
But, we've had calls from Australia, New York, Michigan, I think. And we'll take those calls and we'll talk to anybody.
Right.
So it's one of those deals. If somebody needs somebody to talk to, we're happy to talk. We also have a website that has a lot of resources.
And that is, your website is, let's push that.
Life'sWorthLivingFoundation.com.
Okay.
So Life'sWorthLivingFoundation.com.
What do people outside Tooele, I mean, because this show will kind of go to some other folks in Utah, where is the best, if someone doesn't know of an organization like yours, where do they go? Like, along the Wasatch Front here in Utah, maybe some of the rural areas of Utah?
I would say the best thing to do would be Google suicide prevention and your area.
Okay.
And see what comes
Is there
up on the
anything
list.
nationally? Is there a national organization as well?
You've got NAMI, you've got a couple of suicide.org, you've got American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. There's a lot.
Right.
There's a lot that are national. And what's great about that is whether you're a national or a local, everybody's working in that same direction. As far as we're taking trainings that are they're trainings that are national trainings that can be brought in and used in your areas and everything. But we're all working in that same general direction to prevent suicide.
Okay. This is the Daily Bend. We're talking about suicide. We're talking with Becca and John. Let's positive up a little bit on this one. Some success stories, or maybe one that stands out, or two that that the organization or you personally have been, maybe prolonged, or maybe helped someone through the process, and now they're back to feeling good about themselves and things like that. I imagine there's more than one, but maybe some that come to mind.
Without saying people's
Yeah,
names and
exactly.
bringing people into it, we have had successes, and as silly as it may be, one of the things that popped into my mind when you said that, at one of our suicide support group meetings, we've had people that have come for a couple of years now, and they still come. And usually you'll go around the room and people will tell you where they're at, and people will give advice, and everybody's there for each other. It's kind of like
a 9-step, or it's almost like a AA. It's almost like that.
Most of them love it. They love to come, and they wish it was more than once a month. But
they refer to it as their dysfunctional family, so we all just kind of hang out
Sure.
and are there for each other. But that night we got in there, everybody was really quiet. Everybody was just really quiet, and as it moved around, nobody had much to say. And we're like looking at their watches going, should we wrap it up? What's happening? One of the kids that had come for a while looked up and he says, but isn't that neat? He says, we've been coming so long. We're all in a good place. We're just here to support others.
Right.
And everybody there that night was golden. They were golden. They didn't need that extra boost. They were there to share that boost with someone else, and that night no one was there that needed that boost. Everybody was doing great. So I would say that's a success story.
Do you think to that point, it's kind of like what I try and do with this show, you never know how you're going to affect someone. Somebody says something that affects someone for the rest of their life, kind of like that, it's hard to measure success, especially with you guys, because you're not sure how it could have. We're back. We're back live. That's live TV. We were talking about successes, and we were talking about you never know what they are. I mean, I'm sure that that's something that you really can't measure. Some of your grant, you've gotten grants and things like that. Is it hard to, or whatever funding, is it hard to measure the actual impact that you have?
Well, you know, we've been lucky. We've got corporate sponsors. We do them in bronze, silver, gold, and platinum sponsors. We're in a town of about 30,000, county's about 60,000 people, and it's amazing to me the businesses that are willing to step up and say, hey, this is important to us.
Right.
This is important to us, and we will do what we need to do to help. Without those businesses and without those sponsors, it's very difficult. No one on our foundation is paid. It's all volunteer.
Right.
100% of the money goes into the program to do what we do. And in a small town, it's tough to raise funds. But
I bet.
But we've been very lucky to have generous businesses that have been with us from day one and are still signing up year after year. And so, I mean, we're blessed to have them and to be able to continue doing what we do, because we do it on very little.
Sure. Kind of fill in the blank, and I think I already know the answer, but suicide affects everyone. Young, old, rich, poor, whatever, every ethnic group there is. I would imagine anything. What are you have mission statement? What would be, have you fulfilled some of the goals that you wanted to fulfill? And what keeps you going? What keeps you, is it that constant thing that you're going to help somebody, you know? Kind of
the
a
thing for
twofold.
me is, kind of going into this, I was like, even if I can save one person, I've done my job. And it's my brother
Right,
who keeps me going.
okay. How about you, John?
Well, you know, I think, and I've expressed it to people on the board of directors with us and everything, but I feel like I have that drive to push and do more, and even do more than I think that we're capable of, because you never know who you're going to meet. It seems like every time we have a function, you know, whether it's a golf tournament, we hold a very successful Christmas festival.
Right.
Whenever we do those, you see our numbers rise. You start looking at our numbers on social media and visits to the website, and you realize it is growing. It's growing rapidly. It's really, you can't come into Tooele County, and it's very rarely that you'll hear somebody that doesn't know of Lives Worth Living Foundation.
That's awesome. That's amazing. One last question, because then you've got to get going. Let's focus real quickly on the teenagers, that high critical group. What do you tell a teen? What do we as parents tell our teenage children about suicide? Or, you know, if they say, oh, I'm done with life, that kind, you know, comments like that, or not even any comments. It's not talked about. There's no signs, but it's something that we need to talk to them about. How can we help prevent that within our own families, I guess, first?
I would think that you have to be aware as a parent of things that you should be looking for. I mean, have they changed? Has their moods? You could be here. Your mood could be just a low mood all the time. You could be kind of a depressed person. Well, believe it or not, if that mood comes up,
it goes manic. You know,
if it comes up, that could be a sign. If it drops even further, it could be a sign. So as parents, we need to be aware of what are the signs we should be looking for. And that's one thing that we do in our communities, try to get out and educate those items that you should
And
be
be willing to
aware of.
talk about it.
And
Don't
have
be
that
afraid.
openness where you can discuss anything.
right.
Because it is normal.
And if Uncle George or Uncle Bob, not any offense, has committed suicide, don't be afraid of talking about it and what happened, and surround your view of how it may have happened and what their.
It's not contagious. You know, people.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's
people
a great
people
point.
think I don't want to discuss it. I don't want to put that, Becca mentioned it, you don't want to plant that seed in somebody's head.
Right.
The seed's already there. People have thought about it. People
Right.
have experienced depression to a point where they think, is it worth it? Is life worth it? Is it worth continuing? The answer is yeah, it is. Because
They think that, I think people who get that way think this is the smart route out because I'm a burden. We're dragging people down, and I know for my brother that's how he felt. He expressed those feelings to me the week before he died. Is he was hurting our family. He was hurting my parents. He was a burden to his wife and kids. He was not a good dad. Like, he got all those feelings. But I think if they realized they weren't going to relieve us of anything, it really leaves us in more pieces than
If maybe they realize their worth, their value within their own family or
Yeah.
being here. I know that's always, I know for me, just honestly, sometimes way back when, before I became a cop and a teacher and all that kind of stuff, when suicide would occur, when we would go to suicides, goodness gracious, that's just the most, number one, either the most selfish thing, or number two, look what they've left, this beautiful family, or this mom and dad, or all these friends, all that kind of stuff. I think a lot of times, it's interesting that people don't realize their value or their worth in those situations, but they're depressed. I mean, that depressive state kind of throws that out there, doesn't it?
yeah, and I was going to say one thing that I believe, and I think Becca will agree, is when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, and you'd experience those hormones and you'd be kind of up and down and all over the board, if I was down and out, I would have my dad say, "Oh, sleep on it. In the morning it'll be better." And
Right.
the truth is, sleep on
It'll
it.
be better.
In the
Right.
morning it'll be better.
Right.
I know in Jed's case and her brother's case, had he slept on it that night instead of reacting, he possibly would have never done it. And things change.
Right.
That sun comes up tomorrow, and life can appear different. Unfortunately, you get in that few moments, and you've got to reach those people,
Right.
so that they know, hey, there are people that care about me. I'm not a burden. I'm loved, and I'm worth something. And
with them,
that's just the truth.
listen to them. You need to be listened as their parent, especially the teenagers, like you said. When they're talking to you, really listen and be willing to listen. Don't act like
It's just a passing thing.
like I'm half listening to you. I'm over here busy.
Right, right.
You really need to listen to them because they might say things that you just really realize they might need to talk.
Okay. I think that's a great ending right there. That's the best ending we could possibly have. Becca, John, thank you for coming on. I know this is kind of sometimes it can be, it is live, it's by the seat of our pants, but I really appreciate it. And, maybe in the next couple months again, what I'd like to do is come out to one of your events and just go live and talk to you guys and maybe talk to some other people. I know it's not something that people are a little bit afraid of having a camera there, but maybe if it's a selfie kind of stuff and I'm just out there not engaging, but just showing people what you guys are doing, I think that would be kind of cool. Because I think you're doing something real special. I don't know, a lot of that going on, but you guys are pretty active there. Thanks for coming on. And Toby's over here again. Toby, thanks for having me out here and hooking me up. And want to thank everybody for watching again. We'll download these and you'll be able to see them. And it's a beautiful day, so go out and enjoy it. Remember, it's all about the Bend, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks. Okay, I guess. That's the part we edit out. It's just not. Oh, there it is.